And now we log out, and then we log back in. Don't ask me how it makes it faster, it just does. Ladies, gentlemen, and Harajam of all ages, Diablo 4 has been out for a number of days now, and most people are playing the hell out of it whenever they get the chance. Every one of us has one major goal, really, whether we are doing it purposefully or just accomplishing it as a sort of side goal. We all want to be more powerful, right? Yeah? You want to get to the point that you can just walk over the hardest enemies of the game feeling like a god, to the point where you can push insane levels of nightmare dungeons knowing that you're only even able to do so because of the choices that you've made and the time that you devoted to your character of choice. That said, there are two main ways to make your character more powerful at any given point in your journey. There is gear, specific armor, legendary powers, uniques, all those fancy things, and while you can tip the scales in your favor a bit to give you better gear, you can't literally force it to happen. You cannot force the random drops to appear. The other avenue for power gain, though, is quite simply levels, experience gain, especially once you reach level 50 and unlock the Paragon boards, and those can give you an absolutely silly amount of power. The starting board itself is offering things like, hey, here's 20% bonus damage just on everything you do, literally all the time. I mean, you can't compete with that. That said, what are the best ways to gain levels and experience in the shortest amount of time? For level 1 to 50, it's just main story. Get the main story done. It is literally a requirement if you want to move on to higher world tiers, and you should want to do the story anyways, as it's actually really good. If you do nothing but main story, you'll wind up somewhere around level 40, but you should work in some side quests too when you can as well. As I said before, Paragon points are the main reason that you would want to level quickly past level 50, other than just making other world tiers easier to exist within. So first, let's talk about the way that you can get Paragon points without leveling. There are a few altars of Lilith around the map that specifically give Paragon points, but you should make a point of getting every altar of Lilith at some point eventually anyways, as these are permanent stat buffs for every character on your entire account. After that, there are renown bonuses. The last reward for gathering renown in each of the 5 regions is an extra 4 Paragon points. That is essentially an entire level of character power scaling without actually getting a level, a way to increase your power dramatically, especially as enemies in game scale based on your level, not your overall power. So if you get these points, you will in many ways simply be outscaling the monsters that you fight. That said, those are limited. Once you have them, they're done, and the rest of all of this comes from gaining experience. So let's sit down and talk about the best ways to gain experience in the least amount of time possible. I'll be going over various methods of gaining experience within the game. I've sat down and tested them all around a similar level specifically, just so that I can give you a fairly accurate idea of how much each of these activities can give you within an hour of gameplay doing them constantly. And it's absolutely worth noting, for everything I do today, I have elixirs on.
Drinking will help this.
Elixirs give you a flat 5% bonus to experience gain from all sources, so you should have one of these active at all times regardless of which one it is or the effects that it gives you. Just have one on. First up, we should talk about side quests. These are the best way to fill out your renown in each region for the most part, as they only take about 3 minutes a piece on average. The big thing with these though is that their reward does not scale with world tier. Every other method of gaining experience in the game does scale with world tier properly, and so these are absolutely worth a lot more relative to your character the sooner that you do them. As a result, I would say the second that you finish the main story, this should really be your goal. Do the side quests required to get your renown up if you want to be particularly efficient at this point. Get that all done so you don't have to worry about it later, and at this early stage the experience is actually pretty good relative to other methods. Side quests will give you either 17,000 for a short one or 34,000 for a longer one with elixirs active, so let's say it averages out at about 17,000 for 3 minutes of playing the game. That would put side quests at 340,000 experience per hour, not counting any experience gained from killing enemies during the quests, of course, but that's not bad at all, especially as you can do this prior to level 50, whereas most of these activities you cannot. Everything else that I talk about today, I did test in World Tier 4, specifically on Torment difficulty, but know that it is all relatively the same on Torment as it is on Nightmare, as it is in World Tier 2, and so on. The numbers will be lower in lower tiers, of course, but the comparisons between these activities will still be accurate. First up is regular dungeons, just straight up finding a dungeon on the map, walking into it, doing whatever it takes to complete the objectives, killing the boss at the end if there is one, and then you're done. A regular dungeon on Torment difficulty at level 64 took me about 8 minutes. The total experience that I gained from it was 560,000 within that time. That adds up to about 4.2 million experience in an hour if you just do these on repeat, which is going to be our baseline from this point. There is also a way to increase the experience further, which is specifically completing dungeons marked by Whispers of the Dead. Whispers of the Dead gives you 132,000 experience for handing in 10 Grim favors on World Tier 4, you can do this every time that you complete 2 marked dungeons. On top of that, a Whispers of the Dead dungeon will also give you about 17,000 experience when you complete it, just as a nice bonus. Think of that as a sort of like a side quest XP. It does not scale with World Tier, it just sort of is what it is. The thing is, Whispers of the Dead resets once every hour and a half. On average, each reset will have 5 Whispers dungeons available to you, so you can only do 5 of these every 90 minutes, which is 10 of them every 3 hours, so we'll round that up and say that you can do about 4 per hour. The rest of that hour will be spent on regular dungeons. That would math out to 560,000 XP for dungeons themselves, 4 pops of the 17,000 bonus, and 2 completed Whispers of the Dead for 264,000 total between those, meaning an average of 4.4 million experience per hour, just a touch better than doing non-Whispers dungeons. The next step up in experience per time is actually Nightmare dungeons. These will give you a pop of experience at the end dependent on the level of sigil used, and they can also have mobs scaled above your level, which is why they are actually better. Bonus experience from enemies that are higher level than you caps at 25% extra for monsters that are 3 levels above you. The ideal way to farm this then is by doing Nightmare dungeons that are just high enough to have enemies 3 levels over your own, so you can still clear it really quickly but get that experience bonus. Any enemies that are above 3 levels will not give you further bonuses, 25% is the max, and again, this happens at 3 levels above you. I did a tier 25 Nightmare dungeon, which was more than 3 levels above me, but the experience difference is still the same, and the clear time is still comfortable for me personally. This was 1 million experience total for about a 10-minute clear, which quite simply is 6 million experience per hour, a solid 30% or so higher than doing regular dungeons. This is the best way to farm experience that is actually intended by the devs themselves. This stays true from level 50 all the way up to level 100, and of course if you play in a group it gets a little bit better, letting you have synergies with party members so you can clear it a bit quicker, and also there is a 5% bonus to experience when you are in a group, so that is just more. All of that said, there are 2 particularly solid dungeons at the moment that outscale all of this a ridiculous amount, the true highest experience to time ratio that we have. These are the Ironhold dungeon in Hawazar and the Champion's Demise dungeon in the Dry Steppes. There are specific methods for farming the experience out here that aren't quite as simple as just complete the dungeon as fast as you can, so I will go into those a little bit more in depth now. Let's do Ironhold first as the initial example. You go into this dungeon, run along until you get to the locked door, which will be on your left, then take a right. If you keep heading right, you will come across a specific mob on your minimap marked with a skull. Kill it and it will drop a key. Take the key to the locked door and head to the second layer of this dungeon. In here there are 2 main paths, one left and one right. Each of these paths at some point along them will have an insane grouping of elites, essentially just every elite in the whole dungeon, rather than being split out normally in little bits across the thing, is actually split just into these 2 groups, which makes farming them particularly efficient as long as you are strong enough to handle 6 to 8 elites in one go. Find the pack on one path, destroy it as fast as you can, then go the other direction to find the other pack of elites and do the same. After that, exit the dungeon through your emote wheel, log out outside of the dungeon to get to your character select, then log back in and the dungeon will reset. You can enter it and just do it again. Repeat this loop as much as you want, and this is actually the best consistent way of getting legendary drops within the game currently, due to all of the elites that you're killing in such a short time, and the fact that you are only really focusing on elites in the first place. Again, I am doing this while being underleveled, which gives me a 25% experience bonus, so if you're able to do this in World Tier 4 while under level 70, it is the optimum time to do so. Doing it this way, I got about 600,000 experience within a run that took 5 minutes, which is about 7.2 million experience per hour, a solid chunk above Nightmare dungeons while also having higher legendary drop rates, so really that's just excellent.
They're orange!
Then finally, and this is the big daddy of them all, the absolute strongest experience to time ratio within the game currently, this is Champion's Demise in the Dry Steppes. Simply enter the dungeon, and as you progress along the path, you will reach the central platform. From here, there are 3 paths that you can take. I will call these lanes from here to make it simpler. The bottom right lane, the bottom left lane, and the top left lane. Each of these is absolutely full of enemies. Take each lane one at a time, collecting enemies into the biggest packs that you can handle in one go. The enemy groupings are pretty tight and the path is very dense, so this is really effective for that reason. It drops a decent amount of legendaries as well, but this one is more about the experience, whereas Ironhold is more for legendaries. Once you've fully cleared out all 3 lanes of all of their enemies, enemies, exit dungeon from the emote wheel, log out to character select, and then log back in, and the dungeon will reset so you can start again and repeat as much as you want. This was rewarding me about 1.2 million experience per run, with each run taking about 8 minutes, which makes it a whopping 9 million experience per hour. But that was solo, and I care about loot dropping, so I am taking a little bit of extra time to actually sort through stuff and pick it up. This gets far better in a group though, where with 3 players, each of them can just take full control of one lane, clear them all out at the same time, and then reset without all the walking around time to get back out of the lane that you've already killed everything in. Obviously, this only works if you are strong enough to take enemies with 3 times health, as they are scaled for multiplayer, and also if you aren't looking for loot, as this requires you to only ever go down one lane each, get to the end of it, and then leave immediately without going back, in order to save time by never doing all that running around. If you do that, you will get the 5% group XP multiplier as well, but also it's a fair bit faster than doing it solo. It winds up being about 1.7 million experience in a 7-minute run at my level, which makes it an absolutely insane 14.5 million experience per hour. The one caveat to that, of course, is that this was my first few test runs with the group. We weren't quite perfect. A couple of us were not quite as strong as the others, and we could have been higher level while still getting the 25% XP bonus. So realistically, if you do this absolutely perfectly at the perfect point, you do it right, you could probably get close to 20 million XP in an hour. However, my exact calculation from my own experiences was 14.5 million. And that being said, for 3 people who aren't quite at the right power level for the activity on World Tier 4 is absolutely insane experience. Don't get me wrong, even the 9 million per hour of doing it solo is incredibly worth it, and your clear speed will improve the more comfortable you get doing it on repeat, which makes it even better, but 14.5 million for a group of 3, that's truly insane. And that's it really. Helltide isn't at all worth it for experience, so I didn't really talk about that, obviously, but the long and short of this is, as a whole, you should absolutely do your side quests as early as you can, as well as the Altars of Lilith, just so you can get your renown bonuses before the amount of experience rewarded from it becomes irrelevant for the time spent doing it. Past that, regular dungeons completed normally is decent experience. Whispers of the Dead dungeons specifically are about 5% better than that. Nightmare dungeons are about a 30% increase if you do them with enemies specifically 3 levels above you. Any more than that is a waste. Ironhold Elite runs are about 20% more efficient than Nightmare dungeons. Champion's Demise solo runs are about 20% better than Ironhold, and then group runs of Champion's Demise cap this out at being 50% more efficient than solo runs of the exact same strategy. I hope this helps you all out in your leveling journey. After all, leveling up can really slow down in this game and become a grind past level 50, and every 10 levels past that, the experience required essentially doubles, so it's a bit of a slog. But this is a breakdown of where to spend your time and how to do it if you are only looking to level up as quickly as you physically can. I hope you've all enjoyed this video, and I wish you the utmost speed in your journey to level 100. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.